People recent starting, they're already starting some shrieking out there, like there's another one of those zinc kids. We should remove the world's global populations. Global, no matter starting, no matter global populations. Take a check, whether patrol, whether visitation around, notice how much of it is Nazism. Newton has once stood on whether students stated, whether stated, only because it stood on the shoulders of the giants does it able, like, such as right now, and project whether also whether Newton, whether whichever, whether during the young years. Notice even in the story about Newton, there's so much social to serve its meager ends. It's like we are some psychopaths that engineering itself and got into these major numbers, and it could be counted as similar to the mass amount of Nazism cancer. Nazism is widespread. It doesn't have to be an entity, doesn't have to be sort of with Nazism. If it's operating on the alignment of whether under the direction of Nazism, countable as sort of not pure or whether not a regular folk anymore. Sometimes there's Nazism entity posing as regular folks demand us to describe what is this Nazism and what is the Nazism entity, or whether reason and whether or what is this. Whether what is disconnected. If it requires explanation, it deserves a gunpoint. All of a sudden, I wield guns. All of a sudden, it becomes, it's equal as to some others wield a gun, but I actually is the defender of this nation, unlike a lot, which never showed up to Detroit, and never would, unless with the exception of being adaptation to this statement, and whether reason or perhaps at first, and whether before, perhaps. And according to the Nazism entity is therefore thus they do defend and all of a sudden whether immediately whether also they are therefore benevolent, although exception does not speak for the content. So Newton states that only because it stood on the shoulders of a giant does it able to accomplish this. Now check on the vestige on the scholars. What are they? They're like casino shields converted. If they after they contaminated the regulation, then it keeps on going acting innocent, or whether still does it as if they're in the intro mode. This is post World War II. This is post a lot. Planet has become this consumer's shield that does factory churn. After our guys are prison, and they sillily named that school. If they had the physical and the braveness, they would have probably directly murdered towards our guys. Label us as an ultra nationalist and get each one shot. No kidding around here, right? That's the viciousness level right there, and if our folks would be less surrounded by anesthetic sprays, they change their words to casual. So when they're actually intimidating, it's like they're suggestive. When they actually enforcing, they're asking a question, what is that? Just what is that for? Lots of violence, lots of dysfunction along with the violence, whether also with a bit of a mess, whether moderate, whether reasonable, whether before, whether minor mess, whether minor amount of, whether also whether and moderate amount of mess. Many of the Olympic athletes are celebrated usually by a group of regular folks plus some casino shield that are whether automatrons. We gotta keep away from the mediocrist. Something about low lives actually of humanoid types, whether low lives of humans are very capable because they can talk. And this whole place became a female world. Female as in feminazi, sort of Jewish female world. Knights being targeted, married off, have a son, and they don't like it. Throughout the way, prolonged orchestration until it goes to these death camps, and they consistently name as colleges. I myself skipped from these death camps, and in a way that probably drew some inspiration point from two of my modernist puppets around there. When the two of the modernist puppets of my family, I think familyhood is just a theory until the chosen one arrives. In a way, it sort of is a theory. It sort of enables a reseeding. It does a ritual, and it causes whichever some exterior forces chooses. And sometimes there can be messery, whether a bit quirkiness, and whether also other descriptions of it may not be as similar alignment, whether it may not be as a similar type, and whether similar taste, or whether similar descriptions of it combined, and whether the results to their become, or whether it comes another. That's next generation, whether a son or daughter, whether a offspring. Notice the word offspring then sort of probably being signaling for this probably and whether there comes a child, whether toddler first, whether child, whether descending, whether recent and whether also whether recent and whether also whether a child. It may not be directly have anything to do with the parents. So whether the familyhood stuff is probably a disguise or something that's not really there. If a person is social and he cannot gain more advantage, whether be more probably in the zone or whether content with it, and whether reason there and whether reason there just and whether reason there just and whether reason there and whether probable more with more prominence, whether have more monetary incomes because of it, and whether have more sort of gains, whether have more overall does better, then that represents a social person is a prison. The very same prisoner doesn't declare itself as a prisoner. Be maximized towards dampening towards others. Even for our Olympics showing examples in this boom, this support towards athleticism and lots of this degeneracy will be so fast. Even for our guys saving the rhinos, most of the rhinos probably sold around by these Nazis doing it for what? For his own richness? Not even for its own richness. For some sort of factual meso-churn that is not even properly done, and whether at first it's not even right, and neither whether it is not even in a way evil right. Right? That's the mess we have, isn't it? That's in particular how using logic sort of really resulted to find it nearly and whether as much as our team here have to. The reason there, whether research is there, whether reason there, and whether sort of doesn't match, and whether it's sort of a carbon monoxide or whether carbon peroxide detector, whether carbon monoxide detector, and all of it has been carbon hydroxide, whether peroxide, it passes right through. And the signal says no enemy, no enemy, no whether no enemy is whether no enemy is no enemy is, and whether reason there and no enemy is. It's right, and there's been lots of it. The whole place almost filled at somebody, whether at somebody, and whether the whole place filled with opposites, especially whether at somebody modernity says victims, or whether at somebody's opposites says victims. Reason there of a right of repronunciation, so whether a right of repronunciation, and the and whether am I rather, and whether reason and rather, and these opposites says victims, and whether reason is just, and whether these opposites, and whether reason and probable, and whether also and whether probable of these opposites, and whether reason the opposites says victims, and whether reason there and whether also and whether reason there and whether reason there and whether the opposites, and whether reason there and whether also and whether reason there and whether the opposites says victims.